Hi guys, I know you're so sad you don't get to see my bright shining face today, but today we are doing a build your own palette and I'm really excited about it. We're going to build my own version of a palette that got away from me. This is going to be the first video in a series that I want to do here on my channel these days to get use out of my single shadows. You guys all saw my single shadow collection and I really just want to get some use out of them because I really am trying to be a better consumer. Also, I had a lot of fun doing this for the video that I did building the ABH like fall romance palette that came out last year that I tried to talk myself out of and was able to talk myself out of by building that palette and just truly seeing what the color story looked like in person, because I actually utilized that palette for a couple of eye looks and wasn't really able to love it. So talked myself out of a palette in that way. Today, we're going to be rebuilding a palette that got away from me, one that I can't get anymore. It is the Book of Magic palette by Beauty Bay. You can't get it anymore. And for whatever reason, I did not pick up this palette. I wanted to, and I was going to. It was on sale on Beauty Bay for like $7 right before it went out of stock. And I was going to purchase it, and I held it in my cart for like ever, and then went in to finally pull the trigger on it, and it was gone. And I think that's why it still lives in my brain. It is living rent-free in my brain, and I want to get it out of my brain. So we are going to build that today, and then I will utilize it for a couple of weeks in my collection in conjunction with some of the other palettes. Maybe I'll do a get ready with me or a 4 looks, 1 palette, 3 looks, 1 palette, like with it, and we'll go from there. Hopefully it will evacuate my brain at the end of the day. That is the thought process. It will be evicted from my brain space that it is taking up as of the end of this next couple weeks. When we're building our next new palette, it will be evicted, that Book of Magic, because I will know I have the shadows to complete any look I want to out of that palette. That said, I hope that sounds like something that you're interested in. Tangent over. I am going to roll into this, but for those of you new here, my name is Donna. I work at Ulta Beauty as a field leader. I love high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. This is my self-care, and I hope that you find that you love the channel enough that you'll want to subscribe before you go if this is your first video coming to see me. Also know I have a giveaway going on right now for my subscribers, so I'm going to link that video up in the cards for you guys so you guys can go watch it. But with that said, if building the Book of Magic sounds like something you're interested in, please keep on watching because that's what we're rolling into right about now. As I said, we are going to build our own palette today, and the palette that I want to build, the first palette that I want to build, because this will become a new series on my channel, I think. So we're gonna start it with building the palette that got away, which for me is going to be the Book of Magic palette. You know, I don't know why, but like this palette is still on my brain all the time. I wish Beauty Bay would come back out with it. I don't have a singular palette to put it into. I do have some magnetic palettes, but none that are big enough to house the 20 pans that are in the Book of Magic palette. So I am going to house it in here, which is the empty side of this Adept Cosmetics palette. I did get some like little cheapo magnetic palettes from Amazon, but none of them are big enough for 20 pans. So I might end up putting the palette into 2 of these because I think this holds 12. So I might end up putting the palette in a nutshell into 2 of these. And then seeing if I can find, I know Unearthly I think has some that are bigger. I might go order some from Unearthly so that I can do a good decent 20-pan palette for my build your own palettes. But for today's purposes, we're going to use this and put all of the pans into here. I have all my single shadows. I think I want to start at the bottom. So the bottom row from the last shade, so the bottom up, and I think that first one reminds me of this shade here. You guys can see I'm looking at the picture of it as well. It's either this shade or this shade. This one's a little more purpley. I do think I'm going to go with this one. So it's this blue here. I also have my Cleona shades just in case, but I can't imagine any of these guys will be pulled out. But we're going to pull this one out and we're going to put that one down at the bottom. And then we have a matte. This looks like a true blue. And I don't really have a matte true blue, but this does look like it has a true blue and a navy. And I think if I go this blue and this blue, then it should be relatively similar to what we need to get out of it. I mean, that's pretty close to a true blue. And then this is the navy. Yeah, we're gonna do that. So most of these shades are Sydney Grace, just so we're clear. And this one is Sydney Grace JB. So for the true blue, we're gonna pull in this one. And this is Nightfall by Sydney Grace. And then for the navy blue, we're gonna pull in this one, which is called Ice Fishing. There is a kind of what appears to be like a gray blue, and it looks like it's a shade that would go really well with the navy blue. So I'm thinking this one, but I honestly also think it could totally be this, because that one has, I feel like, a little bit more gray to it. Oops, that's totally not the blue that I was looking at. This one is a little bit more. Oh yeah, I love that. I think I'm gonna go with that. And this one is Sydney Grace Roaming Path. Okay, and then we have a straight up silver. So we're gonna go over here. I think I'm gonna dig into this one. It's kind of a taupey. That's more taupey. I mean, that one definitely looks more chunky than this. But I do think I'm going to go with this silver, which is actually a shade by Mellow. This is Mellow Metallica. The silver in there looks to be more of a white silver, but I don't really have a white silver, and I think that one will be okay. So the next row up, we have like a blue that reminds me of this blue here. So I do think that this is the blue that we're going to go with. And I just have to remind myself that I have these shades. There's a reason why I didn't get this palette in the first place. The next one is a really pretty, like a pinky lavender almost. And I'm really thinking this one here reminds me of it the most. Yeah. Let's go with that one. This is Sydney Grace Gumdrop. Did I tell you what this one was? This is Sydney Grace Oasis. The next one is a matte black, and I do have a matte black right here. So we're gonna put that one in. And then I have this like tealy green shimmer, and I have this whole row of tealy green shimmers, you guys. I'm thinking it looks like this one here, or this one. That one I think is a little bit too minty. This one looks pretty perfect, I think, but I also think that that one has a little bit more depth in it. And it might be more of that. Let me see if I can find a swatch. Looking at the swatches, I think it looks more like this one. So that one was Megalodon, which used to be one of my favorite Sydney Grace shadows. It is just literally so pretty. So we're gonna put that in. And then we have a tealy matte, and it's on the darker side. There is kind of a mint coming up as well, and I don't really have a mint, but if I'm thinking through the lens of a tealy matte and then also a lighter teal shade, I'm gonna have to put both of these in. This one is like a deep teal matte, and this one is like a lighter teal matte. So I'm gonna put both of these in. This one is Formation. This is a ColourPop single. And then I'm gonna put this one in as well. And this one is Sydney Grace Scuba Diver. Okay. I need purples, and I need purple mattes, and I don't have a whole lot of, I don't have any purple mattes, to be honest. Where can I find a purple matte? I have a deep dark purple matte, and then kind of a lilac purple matte, and then a pink matte. And I don't have a whole lot of mattes in these shadows here. I also have all of my Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes that have removable pans. That tells me I need to maybe invest in some Sydney Grace matte eyeshadows, purple matte eyeshadows. I went over and swatched some of my shadows in my Natasha Denona collection, and I hate pulling these palettes apart, but I do think that in the Circle Loco palette, this purple right here resembles the purple that we're going after, only maybe not quite. This is it right here. I do have this one, which is this shadow right here, and it's not quite matte. It performs, you know, it's a satin, it's one of her cream to powder. It performs like a matte could. I think it's just slightly less purple than it needs to be. And that one is purple, like straight up purple. I think I found one, and it also is in a Natasha Denona palette. But I think this one and the one that we're looking at are appropriate. So I'm gonna put that one in to be the deep, like eggplanty purple. I honestly hate pulling apart my Natasha Denona palettes, but it's also honestly one of the reasons why I love Natasha Denona as a brand, because like her stuff can be pulled out. I just need to mark this somehow so that I remember where it goes. Okay. Love face palette number 3, just in case. So that's gonna go in here. For the kind of purpley shade that is next to it, that's more of like a bright fuchsia that looks kind of like this shade, but only a little bit more purpley and matte. I swear I thought I saw one. Okay, my camera died, but I did pull this one out of the Natasha Denona Purple Blue, and it is this shade that was right here, which is called Nina's Orchid or 82V. I did mark the back of it as well. That is the shade that I feel like is similar to that kind of like fuchsia purple in the palette. And then I also started talking about what I think is the perfect shadow for the next one, which would be this one. And this is ColourPop Tea Garden. And I feel like it's got that perfect, like, I don't know, gold to green flip to it that reminds me a lot of what I'm just seeing in pictures of this palette. Now, I did go back and forth between this one and Tea Garden, but I do think that this one in swatches, and the swatches that I'm seeing, looks very much like this greenish color, and this one has a little bit more silver in it. So I am putting Tea Garden in for that second row middle shade. And then we already had the teal that we pulled out. So then the next shadow would be that kind of brownish green, kind of like khaki green brown color. And I was saying that I have this one, but I think it is too light. It's this shadow here, even though it is quite a bit darker in swatch than it appears in the pan. And I have this one, but this one I think is too green because that one is far more brown. So I was going to pull this one, but then I got to thinking, and I do think that the Metropolis has a really beautiful like brownie green that fits this much better. It's this kind of like khaki brown green here. And it is the shade Dupe. It is a creamed powder, but I don't mind the creamed powders in this palette. As a matter of fact, I kind of quite loved the creamed powders in this palette. So I think I'm going to pull this one out as the shadow that we are using for the kind of like khaki greeny matte that is next, and that is what it looks like. It reminds me of what I'm seeing in the swatches here though, so let me mark the bottom. It just says Metro 250 CP on it. Man, this is coming together really well. I'm super pleased with how this is looking right now. The next one, I think we're going to end up having to go back into the Natasha Denona palettes, because the next one is another matte, and it is a pink matte, and you guys can see it. I have a whole lot of rosy mattes, but I don't have like a baby pink matte. And when I look at that shadow, it reminds me of a mix between these two shadows, but I think that this shadow is probably sufficient. Let's look at the swatches. Yeah, probably going to be appropriate for that. I mean, that doesn't look like it shows up very well on my skin tone, but I do think that that color in there is a little smidge bit deeper of a pink. Let me see. What about in the Love palette? That's a little less pink and a little more peachy. I do think the one out of here is going to be the most appropriate version of it. So we're going to pull that one out and mark it. Love Face palette number 2. And then we've got kind of a gold, which I think this one right here is pretty perfect for that gold. It looks kind of like a white gold or a really light yellow gold. And I feel like that is perfect. And looking at the swatches, I feel like this one is a little bit more yellow than that one, but not by much. So we're gonna put that one in. And then we have an orange matte that looks kind of a little bit more brown than it does orange. So like maybe this one, either this one here or this one here. I think maybe this one here is the right like tone, but also that one is really orange. And that one's really yellow. I think it's probably a perfect mix of both of those. What about this one? I think I'm gonna do this one, which is this one here. I think it's a little more orange than this is calling for, but P.S. This is lemon sorbet, that goldy color that I pulled out. And then I am going to use this orange. This one. Yeah. See, I feel like these are two, maybe that one. I know in the picture it's, I'm going to go with this. Because in the swatches, it definitely looks more like this. This color is Trapeze by Sydney Grace. I think that that looks appropriate. The next shade is like a bronzy shimmer. And truth be told, I don't know if I have one. Maybe this one? That also seems kind of dark. This one seems a little bit too like yellow, but let's try this one. I mean, it looks a lot like the swatches. Yeah. We're going to go with that one. And that is from Cleona Cosmetics. This is a shimmer shade in Caribou. And it's not 100%, but I do think it looks like the swatches. And then the last shade is, it appears like a kind of like a cream shadow, maybe with a kind of a yellow undertone. Let me see if I can pull a different set of swatches. Yeah, it looks very creamy yellow. And I think this one here, or maybe this one here. I actually think this one isn't quite right because it's more like orange. But I do think that this is what I'm going to pull in for that cream color. Okay. I'm going to clean this up really quick and then we'll swatch the palette. This is the palette that I just created. This is my build your own palette for a while. I'm not sure if it'll be for a month. I do have like intentions on building a fall palette as well. This is my build your own palette and this is the Beauty Bay palette. I don't know. I think it looks real good. So let's swatch it. And then I will put up the swatches with a picture of the swatches that I have that I was going back and forth with. Some of these aren't going to be the exact same because obviously I don't have 100% of these shadows in here, but also because it's not the Beauty Bay palette, right? Okay, all right, that is my build your own palette. That is the Book of Magic palette. And I'm going to put the swatches from online over here, the ones that I have been looking at. And I think, I mean, this is pretty similar to those swatches. I think I've built a really great Book of Magic, to be honest. And swatching these out, I have to be honest with you, I was like, I don't know if I love this color story anymore. But I do think that I did a good job of replicating it. So we're going to use this palette as the feature on my channel for the next, I don't know, couple weeks to like play with some of the other palettes that I have in play for my palette roulette, and we'll go from there. And with that said, I hope that you guys are here for it. Let me know what you think of my build your own palette. Let me know what you think of a series like this on my channel. It's not always going to be about the palette that got away or something that's of interest to me, but I had a lot of fun doing this for the ABH. I think it was the Fall Romance palette. It's the first time I've ever done that. And I had a lot of fun with it and put together that palette, swatched out, and was like, yeah, no, I've got all these shadows and I don't need to buy this because I will never wear this palette. And you know what? I talked myself out of buying that palette. This maybe has talked me out of thinking that I need this palette, although it is really pretty, and you know, the color story is beautiful, but this palette has been on my mind since the day it came out way back when, or since I knew about it way back when. And I mean, it's beautiful, is it not? But also, can I pull looks out of this that I love? Some of these mats are really, really super firmly pressed, so it took me a minute to get anything off of them, but this is my way of getting use out of some of my singles in my palette or in my shadow collection as well. So I'm really excited about this on my channel. I hope that you are too. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section. And as always, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you and yours are safe, that you are healthy, that you are well and getting along as best you can. I hope that you are all loving each other, being kind humans, and living your best life. And until next time, bye, friends.